Thank you for joining us, everyone. Today, we are here talking with Tony Etnier, former baseball player at Blackburn College, to take a look back at the SLIAC baseball during the 2000s. Tony, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. This is kind of a pretty neat thing. Kind of came out of the blue, so I'm glad we're able to do this.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. My first question for you, you played just 1 year at Blackburn, but boy, did you make it count. You were named the SLIAC Player of the Year as a utility player. What led you towards Blackburn? Why did you choose to come to Blackburn?
So it's kind of a long story, but I mean, I'd played 2 years of junior college ball, and we're at Olney Central College, and then I transferred to a school down in Kentucky, Lindsey Wilson College. I was about 6 hours away from home, and I enjoyed my time down there. And but I had a good buddy of mine that was down there with me, and who was going to be my roommate the following year. So anyway, got back home and I played summer ball in Carlinville with a good buddy of mine, JD Arnold, who was playing in McMurray at the time. And so over the course of summer, I'm playing with a lot of guys that already played at Blackburn, playing against a lot of guys that were already playing at Blackburn. And JD had told me that well, they'd kind of struggled over the past couple of years, and I said, well, man, I'm looking at the players here, and I don't understand why they've struggled. He said, well, maybe they've had the light on pitching at times are thin, and then left side of the infield, they've needed help. And so I said, oh, okay. Well, anyway, didn't think much of it. And a couple weeks prior to me leaving to go back down to Kentucky, I called my buddy up and I said, hey, you ready? He's like, well, no, I'm not coming back. And I thought, okay. And I had some other friends down there too, but he was my
Uh-huh.
best friend down there. And I'd already kind of been, you know, I already kind of wanted to stay closer to home anyway. My parents couldn't come down to watch games. I'd gotten the idea out of my head that I was getting drafted, that I thought, well, I don't necessarily know that I need to be going all the way down there. My buddy's going to be gone. My parents really can't come down. I know it's another year away. And so I thought, I'm just going to stay close to home. And called my buddy JD up and I said, hey, I think I'm going to go to Blackburn. I'm going to transfer. And I said, and his coach had just left. He was Coach Dory, had just left McMurray. So I knew he was maybe someone I could talk into doing it. And I said, what would happen if both you and I transferred over there? He said, oh, we win the league. And I said, okay, so well, I'm doing it. So I put the heat on him. I already committed. I was going. I called Coach Neal, and he had to really think about it because he had some good friends at McMurray that he'd have to leave. And
Sure.
eventually, I was able to talk him into coming over, and that's exactly what we did. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool that two buddies kind of join forces at a new school, and like you
Yeah.
said, really had that immediate success. 2002 was the first time the Beaver program made it to nationals. What do you remember about playing in that postseason and that run that whole year at Blackburn?
The year we were pretty confident we were going to be good. And we had some doubters even at the school, among the population. Oh, everyone, they say they're gonna be good every year, then they struggle, and we're like, no, it's different, right? So, but it's funny because JD said, like the left side of the infield needed some help in pitching. Well, I played third base, he played shortstop for us, and then I also pitched, and so anyway, yeah, we were pretty confident we were going to be good, and won a lot of games and got into the league and won a lot of games there, and had a pretty close race between I think it was us, Webster, and Greenville were the top three. Um, but then the postseason, when we ended up winning the league, the postseason was pretty cold. I mean, we had to go up to Wisconsin
Yeah.
and play, and it was pretty chilly, and it had been warm. And to
Right.
be quite honest, we just didn't play very well.
Yeah.
I didn't play well. I don't know if there's anyone on the team that we could say, yeah, they were good, and everyone else, struggled. But no,
Sure.
yeah, we just didn't have a great showing up there, but just still happy to be there. And it was an honor, and had a great time, great season with those guys.
Right. And like I said, you're the that was the first team in Beaver baseball program history to make it to national. So that's always something to hang your hat on. You mentioned
Oh
it
yeah, it
there
was
that you
awesome.
played third base and you pitched.
Yeah.
Winning the player of the year. Did you have a preference over one or the other? Was it whether it was, playing in the field or pitching, hitting? Did it matter to you?
I loved both. And I probably could have been better at one or the other,
Hmm.
but instead I kind of spread myself out because I had success at every place I had been as a hitter. And well, I don't want to say that I had success everywhere as a pitcher. I didn't pitch a lot, I was more out of a relief role and a spot start role my first 3 years, really. But at Blackburn, I was a starter, and so I don't know. I mean, I probably had a higher ceiling on the mound, but I just love to play the field and hit. And so now I really don't have a preference. I'm glad I did both. Not a lot of guys get to do both all 4 years of college, so
Right.
that's something I'm proud of, and feel a sense of accomplishment for. And yeah, I got to learn all positions, and eventually I ended up being a coach, so I had a good feel for the whole game.
Right.
So
Who had better range, you or JD?
I probably had better range by the time I was a senior in college when I played
Okay.
at Blackburn. I was a little faster than him, but most of our lives, I grew up with this kid. Most of our lives, he was quicker than me. It wasn't until like my third or fourth year in college I was able to actually, maybe outrange him. But he had much better feet, a lot lighter on his toes than I was. So shortstop was a little better spot for him.
So what are some of your more memorable moments that you had on the baseball field? What do you remember when you look back, the 15 years, 20 years?
Yeah. The most memorable was, Greenville was supposed to be the team to beat coming into that season. I think they had won the league the year before. So, we really had them in our crosshairs. And I remember in that series, I think we played the first game at Greenville that I came in to get the save. Maybe it was like a 2 inning save, or maybe I even got a win out of the deal. But so I came in late in that game and threw a couple innings and either got the win or the save. And then the doubleheader was the very next game we played, and that was at our place. And in that game, in game one, we were down 2 going into the bottom of the 8th. Coach Neal told me to go warm up in the bullpen just in case we tie or take the lead. And anyway, Brandon Beal, our designated hitter, hit a 3-run home run while I was down in the bullpen. So we immediately had the lead, and I thought, oh my gosh, this game's over. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to take care of business. Came running down, from the bullpen, screaming and yelling, and was able to go out there and get the save. And then I started the very next game, the second game of the doubleheader, and threw a 9-inning complete game, and we won that game too. So in the series against the team that was
Right.
the returning favorites, I think, I was able to get either 2 saves and a win, or maybe 2 wins and a save.
Yeah.
But,
That's
and then I got to play the field, too. So yeah, that was probably the highlight of my senior year. Just being able to make such an impact on one particular series. So.
right. Yeah. Not a bad series there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier, you didn't really have a preference. You'd like doing both pitching and hitting, playing the field, everything. Quick question though. Would you rather have a walk-off home run or close the game out with a strikeout for a win?
Well, I've done the second one. Okay. So, and that's awesome, right? It feels good. I've never done the walk-off home run, I don't think. I've hit some
No?
I hit a game one winning home run in high school, but
Yeah.
we still had to go close it out. So I would take the first one. I've never hit a walk-off home run.
All right. As we look down this list of all-decade players, are there anyone you remember, competing against that you really enjoyed, whether it was pitching against or hitting against, as you look down these list of names?
So the names that I recognize there, Pat McSheehy, I believe, played for Webster at the time. He, I only played 1 year in the league.
Right.
So it wasn't like I kind of expected to see these guys. Most of them, this is the first time I'd ever seen them play, right?
Yep.
So they may have been good against us, they may not have. And I really can't remember many of the guys that I played against on that list. But I will say I was able to coach Brian Neal at Blackburn. So he came in right after I finished up, and I was still coaching there. And Andy Featon, who played at Webster, I coached him in Legion Ball. We're both from Decatur, Illinois.
Okay.
And so I coached him when he was in high school. So I saw a couple of those names on there. I thought, good for those two. That's awesome. And but yeah, as far as the guys on that list, competing against them, I remember Pat had a real good year hitting. And I remember, I'm sure he had a couple hits against us or whatever against me, but I just don't remember a whole lot
Yeah.
about it. So
Yeah. And then my final question for you, you mentioned it there for a little bit. You coached for a little bit. I believe
mhm.
you played some professional ball after Blackburn for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I played in the Frontier League for the
Hmm.
Cook County Cheetahs for
Okay.
about a month and a half. Hurt my shoulder when I was there. To be honest, I don't know that it made a difference if that was the real reason I was done after a month and a half or not. I mean, it was, but one of the first things I could tell was I wasn't getting a fastball by anybody anymore, right?
Right.
And so and then I throw a good pitch, breaking ball, just off the outside corner.
Hmm.
Uh, change ups that are just out of the zone, and they're not even flinching at it. And I thought, this is a little tougher than what I'm used to.
Sure.
So anyway, I mean, I had some success. I had
Yeah.
like my 3 or 4 starts. I never did get a win, but my statistics weren't terrible. But uh, that was probably as much as I could handle. And then I ended up getting hurt, and so I was done anyway. So
Right.
other than that, I got into coaching afterward and coached at Blackburn for a couple of years. Coached down at SIU Carbondale for a couple of years, and then was the head baseball coach at Ren Lake College for
Okay.
10 years or so.
Nice.
And yeah, so had a long coaching career, but then also I have a family. So my wife and I have four boys,
Okay.
and
They baseball
you know,
players as well.
yeah, we got coach pitch and t-ball going on right now. So I'm still in baseball,
Okay.
even though I'm selling insurance for a living now. I still am coaching. So um, that's pretty much as far as what's been going on after my time down there.
Yeah.
We're living in Salem, Illinois, and doing our thing.
Good. Good to hear. Well, Tony, I want to thank you again for joining us. Really enjoyed a look back at SLIAC baseball during the 2000s and talking with you and reminiscing. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and thanks for reaching out.
No problem. Thank you for joining us, everybody, today. We are joined with Paul Moyer, former baseball player at Westminster College, former All-Region and Pitcher of the Year in the SLIAC. Paul, how are you doing today?
Doing great. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for joining us as we look back onto the all-decade team during your era. As I mentioned, you were a pitcher, little hitting too, but you mostly got known for your pitching. My first question for you: can you talk a little about the Blue Jays during that time? Making back-to-back national tournament appearances to start that decade.
Yeah, you bet. Probably the most fun I've ever had playing baseball as far as that went. Obviously, it goes without saying, you make the tournament, you're having a good time. But those 2 years, the teams are really close knit. Guys hung out together, away from practice, away from games. Could hit the crap out of the ball. Pitching was good. Just a really good, solid all-around team, and a really cool experience. To get to go to the national tournament, play at that higher level, go play against, teams that you don't normally see, and have that opportunity, to keep advancing. So it's just really great memory that I have, something I always look back on, very fondly.
Sure. Yeah, I bet. You mentioned some of the hitters on your team. Pat Rickey, am I saying that properly? Pat Rickey.
Yep.
Yep. He's also on the all-decade team. What made him such a good hitter? As you being a pitcher, what did you see that made him such a good hitter?
Sure. Yeah. So, first off, Pat is just a really good athlete. He was tall, long, athletic. And then just to go along with that, I think he had a really good hand-eye coordination, and he could just kind of hit the ball at all fields. He hit with some pop. He hit a bunch of doubles. Just kind of a solid all-around hitter that was able to do a lot of different things. But the thing that sticks out, and it's been 20 years, so you start to lose some of the details, but I do remember him as just a really solid athlete, and I think that it really lended to his abilities.
Sure. Speaking of being an athlete, any baseball fan knows that pitchers always like to think they can hit, right? Well, you actually finished with a above 300 average for your career, so you were a pitcher, but you could hit also. But what in specifically was it about you on the mound? What kind of how did you leave your mark on the mound? What kind of pitcher were you?
So, I'd like to think that I threw fairly hard. I thought my velocity was decent, but really it was mostly about location and making the ball move. Trying to get some run on the fastball, trying to, keep the changeup working, keep that in play, and not fall into patterns. was kind of my big deal. I didn't want to fall into patterns as far as, a hitter could guess what was coming next, work it in and out, up and down, and change speed. So that was the big thing. And when you got catchers like, Corey Metz and Mark Gifford that were part of our team, it was always seemed to be on the same page. And so it was a lot of fun, playing that cat and mouse game back and forth. And so really enjoyable. And that's just kind of how I went about it.
Now, you mentioned right there quick about working with, a couple of the catchers and that cat and mouse game. You as a pitcher, we'll see there, you're watching the game, pitchers shake off the catcher or whatever. Is that just more about trusting each other, or if the catcher, sees something maybe, or scouting reports? How do you guys handle when you shake someone off, or when you just go with what the catcher's putting down?
Well, so and it's kind of funny. My daughter's a pitcher too, so we talk about this. We talk about this a lot. Really, the pitcher should be in control of the game. The pitcher has to be confident in the pitch that he or she is going to throw, right? So it's up to the pitcher to know what they want to throw. But yes, we had some scouting reports that we used. We charted games. Sometimes we knew, what a hitter had done against us in the past. But it's just, we talked a lot about, what we did and we would do in certain situations. We knew 0-2 kind of where we wanted to go, what we wanted to do, how we wanted to approach it. And just, it's kind of weird. The more you pitch with a catcher and you work with them, you kind of share the same brain. And so the shakeoffs were really kind of few and far between.
Sure. Couple more questions for you. Were there any certain players or teams that you kind of look forward to? Was there kind of a murderer's row, of hitters that you like to challenge yourself or against, or anybody that you look forward to taking the ball on the mound there?
So, what sticks out probably is Fontbonne. They were one of the other top teams in the conference, through those last couple of years. And I think if I remember right, in 2000, we went into a doubleheader with them, basically last weekend of the season. Winner goes on to the NCAA tournament, loser, their season's done. So looking forward to playing those top level teams and taking the ball and saying, look, put it in my hands, let's go get it done. Those kinds of things really stick out with me.
Yeah. As we look down this all decade list of names, are there any players that you remember as being specifically like, who is the toughest hitter, or who did you like to go up against, even though pitchers are really never on the field at the same time, but, just that kind of whole mindset of like, oh, I want to, have my best today so I can beat this guy.
Yeah. So it's a tough question. When I was thinking about that, today there's so much different information out there, right? You've got social media, you've got video on everybody, who everybody is. I don't know that I paid as much attention back then, to who is. I remember, what was his name? I'm looking here. Adam Friedrich. I think he was a player for Fontbonne, or maybe an All-American. I'm not for sure. His last year, I remember him being a good hitter. But I don't remember a ton of detail about the guys I faced. I can tell you as far as who I didn't want to face was Corey Roper. One of my own teammates. I didn't like facing him in inter squads because the dude can mash. But it's just kind of a different time. We didn't have all the information ready at our hands.
You don't have all the analytics breakdowns and
Yep.
Yeah, and baseball's kind of unique in that way also, especially as a pitcher, because if you execute your pitch properly, it shouldn't matter who's in the box, right?
I've always said good pitching beats good hitting.
Exactly.
If you can do those things, execute, change your speeds, because you're kind of in control out there. The hitters haven't had to make a guess at what's coming. So I'll say that, for as long as I live.
And then my final question for you, Paul, catch everybody up. What have you been up to since graduation?
So I live back in Jeff City, where I was born and raised. I did spend a little bit of time living in a small town, St. Elizabeth. It's about 30 minutes south of there, but we're now back in Jeff City. 3 months ago, I started a new job as Chief Technology Officer for the Missouri State Retirement System. So I'm happy to be there, really liking that. Otherwise, I chase my kids around. I've got 3 kids. I've got a daughter that's going to be a senior this coming year. So we chase her around, playing softball. I got a middle son that plays a lot of travel basketball, and my youngest son is going to be in 8th grade. He plays some travel baseball too. So we stay pretty busy tearing up the roads. And as you can see behind me, I know it's kind of dark, but living in hotel rooms. So that's what we do.
That's right. Well, I want to thank you again for taking your time out. Best of luck chauffeuring your kids around during summer ball, but we really appreciate talking with you and taking a look back on SLIAC baseball.
You bet. I appreciate it.